Here I am again. Thank you very much for tuning in. Late for the UK people, but relatively early for those of you in the United States. Now, I've got two great guest co-hosts. There may be a couple of other people joining. If so, I will add them as they arrive. First of all, my regular co-host for talking about all things in deep detail, film director, writer, very talented man. The feature film, The Cost, is coming your way very soon. Check out the trailer on YouTube. It's there now. Independent film director Matthew Holmes is in the house from Australia.
Hello. Welcome from down under.
How you doing, Matt?
Not too bad on this rainy, dark, cold Melbourne morning.
It feels like you and I were blowing up Star Trek ships in my lounge only a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, that's more like, oh, crikey, that's going back over a month or so now, but yeah, seems like yesterday.
Mate, don't make it seem so far away. I'll get depressed. It was absolutely fantastic having you over. And
it was fun being over.
Not only were you playing some games with me, which is one of my favorite pastimes, but you also came down to the Outcast acting class with independent film director James Boosh. There he is, and Dickon, co-founder of the Outcast. And you got to see a load of the Outcast act with your film scripts, which was particularly fun for everyone.
It was fun. It was fun. It was an interesting afternoon when the venue moved us out into the park.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a fun time. I'll get to tell Dark Hour that story when he comes on. So our next guest is one of my newest friends on YouTube. I think I've been on his channel already. He's certainly been here before, and if I haven't been on his channel, I'll be on it soon. But great guy who, like me, was also really inspired or very much cajoled into doing a YouTube channel because of The Critical Drinker. We were both inspired by that man. None other than Dark Hour. Here he is.
How you doing?
Is it a dark hour where you are? Where are you? You're in the States somewhere.
I'm East Coast. I'm not far from New York.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And yeah, you were on my channel this past week. We streamed on my channel. So our live streams, me and the Uninspired Reviewer, we flip flop which week we do. You were on my channel though.
Yeah, you know what? Because I did a 3-hour Lord of the Rings stream yesterday, which finished at 4:00 in the morning.
Was that with Cannoli Sasquatch?
Cannoli Sasquatch, great guy, great bunch.
I haven't been on his channel yet. We've been in talks a couple of times, but nothing materialized yet.
Yeah, you and him are very similar in every sense, both physically and energy wise. And I got the two of you completely mixed up when I was talking to him. And I was saying, oh, I'm doing this stream on Saturday. Is it going to clash with anything you're doing? He's like, dude, I don't do streams on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Who is that?
There was actually, what was it? There was one, me and him were talking about it once because we had the same movie scheduled with the same guests. So I was like, okay, I'm going to change mine because yours was scheduled first.
That's very kind of you. One thing I keep meaning to say when I go on another person's channel, and I meant to say this on yours, and Matt will find this particularly poignant, is I've been a writer-director full-time, both in the theatrical arts, stage, and film, full-time since 1997 as an independent, banging on the doors of the bastions of the theatre and film British institutions, the BFI, Royal Court Theatre, National Theatre, trying to get a job, doing my own thing, producing my own thing, full-time since 97 until the present day. And in that time, I can honestly say I've had the door shut in my face, God knows how many times. There hasn't been a single person at any of these institutions that's turned around and looked at all of the work that I've done with absolutely no funding whatsoever and has said, I'll tell you what, Lance, how about I give you a bit of a hand and pull me up? I've had no respect from them whatsoever. I've been on YouTube only about a year doing my channel. So compared to the 25 years that I've been in the film and theatre industry, and in that 12 months, I've had more support and more respect from my fellow YouTubers and the gods of the YouTube community, the big boys as well, and girls, than I have from the British film and theatre world in 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
That really hit me when I thought about that the other day. And
I think there's
say.
I think there's a little less gatekeeping going on with YouTubers, because being involved with more people just gets you more exposure, even if it's on. So like, you're gonna have people that are like, oh yeah, let's collaborate, let's do some stuff, even if it's a smaller channels. You're gonna end up with that kind of situation. Whereas like when it comes to like the film industry, a lot of that stuff is already established, so they have their clicks, they have their
I mean that is true, but I just think my work has kind of been invisible in a way, but people can see how hard I'm working on my channel on YouTube. They can't ignore it. It's visible. It's there. I've got 36 industry interviews already, and I've only been going a year. Yeah. And I've got actor Tim Thomason coming on in a week or two. Can't wait to do that. So, and some other big guests planned as well. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, the reason I mention this point is really to say how much I appreciate being able to collaborate with people like yourself, Blackhat. And obviously it's wonderful to have my friends like Matt come on. We can talk about the stuff that we really enjoy, but I can promote the work of this very talented man at the same time, who's also been ignored by the bastions of the Australian film community. So, anyway, I won't rant on about that any longer. We're here to talk about the films of Michael Mann, but I did just want to make that point, because I meant to say it when I was on your channel the other week, and I completely forgot. So
you got a chance now, so.
Well, it's my channel, so
well, you got a chance to say it to me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we've got a couple of my regulars on already. We've got David Macy, who is always here, and he won our prop from our Judge Dredd stream. So there's a prop from the Carl Urban Judge Dredd film currently making its way to David Macy's house. So sometimes you're going to win stuff on our channel as well, and I'm going to be giving away. When I hit 5,000 subs, I've got 5 amazing prizes to give away when I do my 5,000 subs celebration stream, including some film posters like the They Live British film poster up there. If you can see it, it's up right at the top there. And I've got some other bits and pieces that are quite rare that I'm really hanging on to, and I have no idea why. So I think I'm going to give I'm going to give some of those away as prizes on my when I get to 5,000 subs, and I'm trying to get to 5,000 subs by Christmas. So please do spread the word. Thank you to the people that are watching right now. Do like and subscribe. Give us a shout out. Blank Expression. Never seen you in the chat before. Thank you so much for coming in. That could be Michael Mann in disguise. We don't know. It could be.
So be nice.
Know. This is your time, buddy. Bless you. That's very kind. Thank you very much. It's definitely Matthew's time. This man is talented beyond belief. He's going right up there. Trust me. He'll be offered Avatar 4 and turning it down in no time. Oh, this is Ian. Okay. Ian, did you have to spoil it? I thought it might be Michael Mann. Ian's a friend of mine. He's just subscribed today.
Michael Mann is what
you could have strung that out a bit longer, Ian. Okay, all right. Anyway, let's get on to the topic at hand. So we're talking about the films of a very talented director today, whose career I've unintentionally actually followed from quite a young age, because I saw LA Takedown, which was a video rental, and on the front of the VHS box in the video store, it said, "From the creator of Miami Vice," and I quite liked Miami Vice. It was a bit hit and miss for me. But overall, I quite liked it as a show. If I was in, I would watch it. So I rented that out. And of course, I didn't know that was the blueprint for what would later become Heat. Michael Mann has directed 12 feature films for the cinema altogether. And we're going to be choosing our top 3. Now, normally what we do is we do these things in order. We do 3 first, and then 2 and 1 and all that. But we're not going to do it like that today. We're going to do it slightly differently. So we're going to talk about our top 3 films straight away, and then we're going to make sure that we talk about all of those. But what we'll do is we'll briefly discuss the films of Michael Mann's that haven't made any of our lists. We've also got the Gourd King in. I do love the Gourd King. He's wicked. King of the Potato Pumpkin People. Darth Plato is also here. Thank you for popping in, guys. Do plug the stream if you can. If you can do a little post about it, I'd appreciate it. So, yeah. So there was one film of Michael Mann's that I personally hadn't seen, which was Thief. So I watched it today. Matthew, on his trip to the UK, along with the other 447 Blu-rays that he picked up while he was in the UK, picked up Thief, but he hasn't watched it yet.
Haven't had a chance to see it yet, but
no. How many of Michael Mann's 12 films have you seen, Dark Hour?
Probably about 5 or 6. Let me pull up his full list real quick here.
Well, you've got The Thief, The Keep, Manhunter, Last of the Mohicans, Heat, The Insider, Ali, Collateral, Miami Vice, Public Enemies, and Blackhat. Ferrari has not been released yet.
So that was, if I counted correctly while you were doing that, I've seen 7 of the 12.
7 of the 12. Well, that's a good selection. Well, as you're the new guest on the channel, I'm gonna defer to you first. What are your top 3 Michael Mann films of the ones that you've seen?
So do you want me to go 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3? Okay, so 3, 2, 1. So probably my third one. I was kind of bouncing between Collateral and Manhunter, but Manhunter was like the first one I saw from him, so that took that spot. Then the second one is Ali. I was a big boxing fan when I was a kid. I still like boxing, but like and the stories of Ali have always been things that I like to follow. So that was a great one. And then the last one, and probably everybody's number one on this list, is going to be Heat. That's what I'm going to assume everybody's number one is Heat. I'm just going to guess that. But...
Okay, I've put that in the chat, and guys in the chat, when I've typed all 3 of ours, if you want to put yours below that as well, in the same way I have done it, 3, 2, 1, please do so. Matthew, what are yours?
All right, 3, 2, 1. My third favorite. I've seen 6 of his 12, so I've seen half of his stuff.
Right.
I'm really trying to catch up with his back catalog at the moment, which is why I bought Heat. Which is why I bought Thief. I'm very interested to see The Keep and Manhunter. They're the next ones I'll be hunting down as well. But I lost interest in Michael Mann's movies from the movie version of Miami Vice onwards.
Yeah,
the one he did with Colin Farrell.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
But my favorites, number 3 is Collateral. Number 2 is Heat, and my favorite Michael Mann film by a long mile is
Last of the Mohicans. Yeah, I thought so. Interesting. Yeah, okay. So, right. Well, it's good that none of our lists are identical. We've got Gourd King getting ahead of the game. Did say wait, honestly, but
he also did 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, he's done them in the wrong order as well. Please list them the way we have. Honestly, Pumpkin Man, you can't do anything. So my choices are as follows. So my number 3 is The Insider with Russell Crowe and Al Pacino. My number 2 is Last of the Mohicans, and my number 1 is Heat.
Okay, I was close. 2 out of 3 of us had Heat.
Now, if I had to do a runner-up, I always like to discuss the runner-ups, and you could all chip in as well. I would say of the remainder of his back catalogue, it would probably be Manhunter would probably be number 4 for me. Number 5 would probably be Public Enemies. Number 6 would probably be Collateral.
Interesting.
So near miss for you, Matt. What would you?
Public Enemies.
Public Enemies. Dark Hour.
Well, I said Collateral, but Public Enemies is up there as well. And probably Last of the Mohicans. Honestly, it's kind of his career is kind of a half and half. Like I believe you said that, Matthew. That like after a certain point, it kind of hit like a slight downturn. Maybe, but the top of the list, like the earlier stuff, is all fantastic from that I've seen.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I noticed when researching Mr. Mann today, and Matt and I can both vouch for the fact that we've had similar experiences, is the financing for none of his movies fell into place quickly. They all had a pretty long and tortuous journey to get financed. Like Ali, for example, took 9.5 years to get made from the point that the script was conceived. Heat, when you think about it, was really LA Takedown, which was in the 80s, and then Heat was in 95. So, and that's another thing I got to show you guys. Let me grab this real quick. I think it's in the other room. Oh no, it's over here. I bought it especially for the stream. Sorry, forgive me. 2 seconds. One of the things I really wanted to read, especially for this stream, and I'm about halfway through, and I'm really glad I bought it, is this.
Heat 2? There's a book for it? I know the original one's based on a book, but
I've seen that advertised. Yeah, Heat 2 book. No, yeah.
So this is a novel that Michael Mann wrote in conjunction with Meg Gardiner. It picks up exactly where the movie finishes, and it has 2 timelines. It's got the timeline after the robbery and follows what happens to Val Kilmer's character, and then the second timeline is 10 years before the robbery. 1988.
Oh, nice.
So you get to sort of find out about what De Niro's character did early on. So it's really interesting, actually. I mean, they probably won't ever make it as a movie, but it's a great book. I recommend it. If you're a fan of the movie Heat, you will definitely enjoy this book. And interesting to see that kind of Michael branched out into that medium as a way of extending the story. He hasn't ruled out making a sequel, but I can't see it happening.
No, I mean, you needed to do it straight afterwards if you're going to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, you could have did it a little later. Like maybe within 5 to 10 years it would have had to be, though, because at this point I don't think Niro and Pacino are. I mean, they will always be draws, but like, I don't think they're really in that spot in their careers anymore where you could do that. So
no way. Nah, yeah, and also I feel like the story. I don't know. It felt like the story wrapped up. Like, the story, like he got his man, and the criminal, got
Well,
lost.
It picks up with Hannah being determined to find the one that got away, which actually totally fits with the way Pacino plays the character. He's
going after Val Kilmer?
Yeah. And actually, the story of how Val Kilmer escapes is covered in the first chapter, and it all feels very plausible. It all fits completely with the narrative. Pacino also goes to question John Voight's character, the fixer guy.
Oh yeah.
And they raid his bar in the book, and the way the dialogue is done with Voight's character is, you can picture the actors saying these lines. You can see them because the characters are so vivid in the story. So
maybe AI will turn that book into an AI movie.
Yeah, God forbid.
With a young Pacino and give them the voices and give them the style, and who knows.
So the structure of the book is it tells one story immediately after, and then the second half of the book is before. Is that what you said?
No. The chapters alternate. So
okay.
You've got one chapter. The first chapter tells you what happens to Chris, Val Kilmer's character, right after the robbery. It's the story of him, how he escapes, how he gets out of LA, because his escape route is compromised. So, John Voight's character sorts him out with this woman who drives him across the border to Mexico. And, of course, he still wants to go back and get Charlene. And it's all very believable. You can picture the scenes. It's like a longer cut of the movie, that chapter alone. And then, you turn into the next chapter and you're in 1988, and it's covering the time when Robert De Niro met Michael Williamson's character, who ended up being the driver on the robbery. You remember, he saw him. He's the cook. He's just got out of prison.
Yeah.
He says he knows him. He's met him before, and it actually covers the time when they met before. So that's as far as I've got with the book, but it's really good. I mean, I don't know whether we should start with Heat because I've mentioned the book. Most people would say that it's Michael Mann's best film of all time. It was a toss-up between that and Last of the Mohicans for me, and I can certainly talk about why he just picked the post for me. But Dark Hour, why is it the number one for you?
Well, I always come back. So by far my favorite scene, and I think it's most people's favorite scene in that film, is when the face-to-face discussion.
In the cafe, in the diner.
And it's just the whole thing about that scene is kind of a microcosm of the whole film. Is that it's all perfect, like their body language, their timing off of each other, everything they're saying. It's like, and that's kind of a microcosm of the whole script because it has so many great actors in it, top to bottom. Even you have
has a phenomenal cast.
Yeah, like Tom Sizemore and like Ashley Judd, like they're all great actors throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
so Val Kilmer, they're all played like to perfection, and at no point do you ever kind of get the sense like, oh, well, that person, they could have did better with that character, this, that. So, and that's always a big thing for me. But like, I don't like to be taken out of the experience. And it's a film that never really does that to you. It always has you on like the edge of your seat or, trying to figure out what's going on, like what's going to happen. So it has that feel to it the entire time. And that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
Michael Mann did an interview with Vanity Fair recently, and he said in the interview, and I read the whole thing, that he likes to put the audience in the story. He likes to put you in the shoes of the dilemmas of the characters effectively. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, actually, he's a director that's pretty good at doing that. When I think about the films of his that I really love, I really feel like I've been on the journey. And for me, the biggest strength of Heat, because I remember this one, I was living in a shared house at the time when I saw it, and this girl came back and went, I thought it was really long and boring. And I said, but didn't you get the dichotomy that you as the audience member were in at the end? You've got this huge confrontation, this spectacular gunfight, and you don't know whether to root for Pacino or De Niro, because by the time you get to that point, you're really invested in both of them. So it makes it really difficult for you as the audience to say that's the bad guy or that's the bad guy, and you so want De Niro to get away when he makes that turning off the motorway to go and get Waingro. You just know that's the wrong decision, and he could have got away. He could have had that life,
Yeah.
So I think the strength of the film, and there are many, like the best, highest gun battle ever filmed in cinema history. But I think the best strength of the film is the fact that it puts you in that dichotomy of it blurs the lines between who's good and bad. It's not as simple as that, and you become very invested in these individuals as real people. They're all dysfunctional. That's what they have in common. They're all dysfunctional.
They're all flawed.
They're all flawed. Yeah. So the other strength of the movie is its aesthetic. Michael Mann, and he does this with all of his films, is wherever the movies are set, the setting becomes its own character and it has its own unique color palette and the way it's shot. And I mean, that's obviously as much a responsibility of the DOPs that he uses, but it is a trend that's consistent in all of his films. They all do have a look that almost becomes another character in the movie that really underscores the tone and the content of the film. You guys agree?
His environments, the environments are very, extremely important in a Michael Mann film, which is a strength. I think Heat is Michael Mann's best film easily. Like it is his most accomplished movie. It's like his Everest, it's his peak. Everything that came before was leading to this, and anything that came after was not as good, because it was such a good movie. Yet that still doesn't mean it's my favorite, but I can absolutely see that it is his most accomplished best movie. But There's something about Mohicans that has a special place in my heart, even though I think Heat is actually the better movie.
These kind of shots with the neon lights, and you know, he always has scenes at night, I think, in every film. And you know, reflective neon light in pools of water is also very much a Walter Hill trademark, and I've seen it in a lot of Michael Mann movies. And also, this is an LA that I felt when I watched Heat, it's an LA that we've not really seen before. It just felt different somehow.
Yeah, he does actually film LA very well. I feel like he really gives you the sense of the world of LA when he in his movies.
Yeah,
which
the
is
real world.
which is yeah, and we've seen other movies like this. You know, a bunch of gangsters and doing robberies, but there was something about Michael Mann. He just gives it a flavor. He gives it a style, and it sort of lifts it above the TV world. It lifts it into. He makes it a movie. He makes it. He does movies. And a lot of directors can't take content and without it just feeling like cheap television or cheap streaming, or he can always seem to bring his material up to that level. Yeah, but I think where he kind of, I think, slipped up is really when he got into digital cameras rather than film. That's where I really feel the drop off for Michael Mann started, in the quality of his work when he went digital. So, but that's just my theory.
Okay,
I'll have to take your word on that. I don't even, which movie did he switch over to digital for?
He switched over to digital in Collateral, which I still like. I still think it's a good film, but then he did Miami Vice, and then he did Public Enemies, and he started shooting all his films on digital cameras. And the look of his movies, the aesthetic of his films very much changed from that point on. And they started taking on a cheaper, less refined cinematography look, more sort of gritty handheld, bit more shaky cam, and it had that clean, sharp, sort of characterless digital look. Whereas he came from movies that just looked sumptuous and gorgeous, shot on 35mm film, like Heat and Last of the Mohicans, things like that.
Now that you mention it, I do recall. So I've only seen Miami Vice, the movie, once, but I do remember that having a lot of like shaky cam in it and stuff. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, and I think that's Public Enemy's problem as well, is that it's this 1940s gangster film, but it's shot with these modern high def cameras, and it's got this sort of cheap high def sort of early
digital look, where
they
still hadn't quite learned how to light digital.
No, so you get those muddy colors and that sort of heavy, grainy, pixelated sort of look. It was the days before Red and the Arri Alexa and all those cameras, which can absolutely mimic film almost exactly now. But back then, he embraced the digital technology. I think, like Lucas, he embraced it a little bit too early. It wasn't really there yet, and I really wish he'd stuck with film until the cameras had caught up, but he didn't. The only film that I thought worked was Collateral, being digital, because it gave because the movie was kind of a bit, it was a bit like a this is all happening now, and so it fit with the style of the digital.
It was very frenetic.
Yeah, whereas Public Enemies needed a more sumptuous look. I think it would have looked better if shot on film, a bit more glorious in its presentation.
Being a period piece as well.
Yeah.
One interesting fact that I found out today, as a result of when I was talking to actor Tim Thomason last night, and I told him we were doing a Michael Mann stream next, and he said, I had lunch with him one time, and he told me, have you heard of this British guy called Andy McNab? And I said, yeah, of course I have. He said, yeah, Andy McNab is the guy who trained the actors to fire the guns and everything. And I thought, I haven't heard that before. I wonder if that's incorrect. And Tim actually did say, I'm not sure if I got that right, but I think it's true. Anyway, I did a quick old Uncle Michael Google, and yeah, it is true. So Andy McNabb was an ex-SAS British Special Forces soldier. His unit Bravo 20 dropped behind enemy lines in the first invasion of Iraq. Their mission went tits up, and most of them were killed or captured. Made into 2 films. One's called The One That Got Away, and the other one's called Bravo 20. And there's also a very famous book. There's a lot of contentions over exactly what really happened and what's true and what's not and what's been exaggerated. But what is true is that McNabb got the leading cast to train with automatic weapons with live ammunition for 3 months, rehearsing the robbery. They even went into the actual bank that they used for the shoot, but before the employees and everything knew that it was going to be used as the actual location, and coasted it out as if they were going to rob it.
Wow!
As part of their training, and then they went through the kind of the rehearsal motions. So that's why when you have the shootout, the guys really look professional. They changed the ammo really quick, and they were doing all of that with live ammo in training that he supervised, and then it was blanks on the day. But yeah, so I didn't know that Andy McNabb had stepped in and done all that. And that was
I've heard that that the military or the police or something actually now they actually use that clip from Heat to train and show people how to properly handle weapons and do those covering tactics and covering each other, because it's so precise that they actually use it for military training as an example of it.
And of course, it's also said that the actual film inspired that robbery that took place in LA a few years later, where the 2 guys robbed the bank in the combat vest with the
Southern California.
Yeah.
I forgot the exact name that it was, but yeah, they had the audit. I remember I was a kid and I remember watching that on the news, and it was like they had AK-47s with armor-piercing rounds and shotguns, and they this is back in what, 90.
It was a couple of years after, it was a couple of years after, and it was made into a film called like 96 Minutes or something.
Yeah, and they had body armor on, and like the police couldn't do shit to them. Like they couldn't do anything to them. They had to go. They actually had to go to a local
gun store and get rifles,
AR-15s, and with armor-piercing rounds. They had to that's something I hadn't even thought about that in years.
I mean, when I read that, I was really surprised. Just an interesting note as well, when you do watch his first film, Thief, with Jimmy Caan, who of course passed away not that long ago, the blueprint for this scene is in that movie, except it's a scene between James Caan and his girlfriend. But you can see that scene completely, the template for that scene is the template for this one. And another thing that I didn't know when researching for the stream tonight is that he is actually based on a true story. And it's about a real, the factual basis. Neil McCauley was a criminal. He was an ex-Alcatraz inmate who was tracked down by a detective called Chuck Adamson, who's based on the Al Pacino character.
Right.
And this guy Adamson actually did follow this crew because he knew they were going to rob again, and set up an ambush for them. And that is how they were killed. And the scene where they have this coffee in this diner, that actually happened between McCauley and Adamson. They did actually have that conversation, and Adamson told Michael Mann all about it, which formed the basis for that scene.
That's really awesome.
When I read that, I was like, wow, that's nuts.
Yeah. So there is that, I guess there's that injection of truth that is kind of, I think what's cool about Michael Mann movies, if you look at nearly all of his films, not all, but nearly all of his films, I mean, they always say that a director really only has one story to tell. You've heard that before. I don't know how true that is. But if you look at Michael Mann's movies, they usually are about the meeting of opposites, or a person who stands for this coming up against someone who stands for this. So you've got Heat and, these 2 characters in Heat. You got the 2 characters in Collateral. You got the cop and and the gangster bank robber in Public Enemies. You've got the English guy who versus Hawkeye in Last of the Mohicans. So he very much is about two very strong male characters who see the world in different ways, very similar, both probably as strong as each other, but opposing, and they're going to clash. So yeah, there is that sort of recurring theme in a lot of Michael Mann's films, which is kind of cool.
They're quite male dominated worlds for the most part as well, I would say.
Oh, absolutely, they are. Yeah, they are very male dominated world. There's always women within them.
Yeah,
and they always form a lot of motivation, but they are very male dominated. Absolutely.
So what would you give Heat out of 10 on IMDb, Matthew? First,
I would give it a 9.5.
Dark Hour?
I'm right in there, like 9. Yeah, definitely.
To 10 from me. I just had to go back and check to see if I'd rated it already, and I have. It's
severely rewatchable, and every time you watch it, you sort of settle in and you just go, "Oh God damn, they just don't make movies like this anymore." And not even Michael Mann makes movies like this anymore. That's what blows my mind.
And for anybody watching on Netflix or whichever platform it's on at the minute, it's on a couple of platforms, I think. It has been edited for violence and bad language. So, physical media.
Yeah, make sure you go and get the DVD or the Blu-ray.
What? They've edited out some of the bad language and...
Yeah, and the scene where the girl cuts her wrists is not the same. You don't see Wayne Grove get shot through the head.
This is why this.
Yeah, man.
This is why this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let people... this world just keeps trying to censor everything.
Wes Kelly said, I read Heat 2, not sure it'll be a worthy sequel prequel. I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't got to the end of it yet, but I'm enjoying it so far. It certainly feels like I'm watching or reading about the same characters that I've met before. Okay, so Matt, you and I both mentioned Last of the Mohicans. Dark Hour, did you mention that one as well?
It was in my my honorable mentions.
Your honorable mention.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time, so I might not have too much to say about it, but I've seen it before, just not for quite a while.
Well, let's talk about Last of the Mohicans.
Got a lot to say.
Next, yeah, me too. Matthew, did you first see it in the cinema?
No, I did not see it in the cinema. I saw it on VHS. It was post Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. I was dying for more Robin Hood Prince of Thieves type content. I saw that on the video shelf and I thought, oh, that looks like it could be something like that. Rented it, watched it, and actually didn't like it when I first saw it. I found it slow and annoying, and it wasn't a movie like Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. But what happened is, after thinking about it, I went back to the movie and revisited it, and then sort of saw it for what it was and really started to enjoy it. And then very quickly, it became one of my all-time favorite films. And to this day, it still remains one of my all-time favorite films. I've recently watched it again this year, and I just still get awestruck by how emotive it is and how just how powerful it is as a story, and a movie that doesn't talk itself to death. It's all done with looks and music and suggestion and things like that. It's sort of like one of the last big sort of sweeping romantic epics, and probably one of the best.
I concur. I just quickly before we move on totally from Heat, just a couple of other things I'll mention. There are a couple of different cuts available of the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that until I was researching for this.
I hope I've got the good cut.
That have come out over the years, and there are different cuts of almost every Michael Mann film, including Last of the Mohicans.
Oh yeah, I've got the extended one. Yeah, it's got a few little extra things. Yeah.
So I did see Heat in the cinema. I took 14 people to see it for my birthday, and boy, was I popular after that. Because they really enjoyed it. No one had heard of it because it didn't get a lot of PR over in the UK, and the trailer was very abstract. It was a very short trailer, not a lot of dialogue, and just showed that sort of couple of shots of Pacino, couple of shots of De Niro, and that slow motion shot of him raising his gun to shoot through the windscreen. And that was it. It was a very short, abstract trailer. Didn't get a lot of PR. And I just had a gut feeling it was going to be great. And thank God I was correct. Otherwise, I would have had a lot of grumpy people in a minibus going back to Nottingham. But yeah, I saw it opening night of London, packed out. You could have heard a pin drop during that gunfight. I mean, and you know, the whole film, everyone was gripped. Last of the Mohicans, I saw on like a weekday afternoon on my day off from work. There was probably only 10 people in the cinema. It was like a 2:00 show on like a Wednesday or something. Nice big screen though.
Yeah, that'd be the way to see it. I really wish I'd seen it on the big screen.
This sequence here always sticks in my memory because you've got that gunfire that starts either side of the forest and it gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and puffs along, and then you hear all those screams and you're like shit, and you can kind of see what's coming. But I mean, that's one of many great visual moments.
It's got such good visual storytelling, and it's so well considered, and I don't think this world of the frontier has been more vividly recreated than it. Like, it's all shot on location. The sets and the costumes are just impeccable, and it's so vivid and violent, and the music, it has to be one of the best scores ever made. It's just
a really, really good score.
Such a good score, and so perfectly fitting. And the performances all round are so committed. I just can't praise The Last of the Mohicans enough.
This is one of the first films that Dale Dye was the military advisor on, with his company that would train up everybody to act like soldiers.
Yeah.
And so he was responsible for, you know, training the extras playing the British soldiers to act in unison and all that kind of thing.
Did a great job.
He did.
It really is. It's sort of like it was a bit of a holy trinity of in the 90s of like movies about the frontier that had, you know, that dealt with also with Native American stuff. At least how we saw it over here in Australia.
Yeah, because Dances with Wolves was not that long before this, was it? It was
only a year or two, maybe not even a year. But so it sort of felt like this one, and I think it was a Black Robe that was a bit of a lesser film.
That was out around the same time. Largely shot in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. There's Jodie May, who I had a crush on at one time.
Oh, yes, she was a very tragic, beautiful and tragic character, that one.
Yeah, and she had quite a big dialogue narrative in the film. Nearly all of her dialogue scenes were cut.
I want that version.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. There she is again.
Her career as an actor, she sort of disappeared after this.
No, she's steadily worked.
Check out
her IMDb.
Okay. But she never hit heights of Nicole Kidman.
She takes big breaks, but she started acting very young, and she went back to Cambridge and studied a degree, and then got back into acting again. She's done a lot, but she works when she has to, rather than or when she wants.
She done quite a bit,
when she wants to, rather than she has to. I think she's quite comfortable to, you know, work at the level that she's at. Great actress. So Dark Ad, have you seen Last of the Mohicans?
Yeah, but I haven't seen it for quite a while. I remember liking it a lot, but it's just one of those movies I haven't gone back and rewatched in a very long time. So
I think now that
can't add too much to the conversation because of that.
Well, now that you're going to be YouTube's 117th best film critic, I feel you should go and watch it pretty soon.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just after the discussion on the digital versions of Heat versus, like, you know, the Blu-rays. I went and immediately grabbed a while that was going on. I bought a copy of it on Blu-ray. So
good. Because
I want to rewatch it. And I was like, this is probably the best way to rewatch it. Then not digitally.
Yeah,
it's incredibly well shot as well.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's definitely worth it if you've got a home cinema with a loud sound. Yeah. Like, it's one of those movies. Get a big bowl of popcorn, and then just put it on, crank the sound, and just get immersed in this world. So,
Leroy's saying, I wish she didn't die in the movie. I wish she and Uncas lived and got married. So there was a whole load of scenes with her and the Indian of them falling in love that all got cut from the movie.
That's such a shame. But look, that's a shame it got cut. But also, we got it. Like, as an audience, we got it. And obviously, Leroy cares enough. He cared enough about their relationship that he wanted them to live. And absolutely, you wanted them to live. That's the whole point. It makes you care about these characters and that little family unit that they start creating amongst themselves. But I feel like the character of Hawkeye is a character we don't see anymore in the movies. He is like this perfect embodiment of everything good about a male hero. He's noble, he's a great fighter. He's passionate. He's got such good, he stands for something, and, he's so reliable. He's such a, when he says, I'll come for you, you just know that this guy will move heaven and earth to make sure he does what he says. And it's such a good character to get behind.
No matter how far, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah. And it's like, no wonder women love this movie, because he is like the ultimate man, the ultimate perfect man is this guy. He looks good. He loves only you. He has that focus. He loves his family. He's a good fighter. He's protective. He's just the ultimate masculine hero. And I'd love to one day make a movie with a hero like that, to bring that kind of hero back, because I think we get a lot of I guess deconstruction of masculinity in movies now, and I feel like this is one of the last films that really heralded it in a positive way.
I have a feeling there's going to be a resurgence of the masculine hero in the maybe not the near future, but I think it's coming.
There will be if me and Matthew get to make our film. I can promise you on that.
I look forward to it.
This actor has a cameo in the movie. Can you tell me who he is, guests?
That's the son of Richard Harris. That's Jared.
Correct. And Matthew watched The Wild Geese for the first time around my house a few weeks ago, where we got to see Richard Harris running for that plane, but not quite making it on board.
Yeah, and Jared's a great actor, and
he's every bit as good as his dad, I would say.
Yeah, he is really good, and he's really he's in the small part in this, but you always remember him for some reason.
I've met Stephen Waddington, who plays Duncan on the right here. Very nice guy.
Always popping up in this period as the sort of the stuffy English aristocratic character.
He's definitely done a few of those roles.
But such a good character here, like the way he's antagonistic, but he's not evil. He's just he's a tragic figure, but he's complex, but totally redeems himself at the end, and you really feel for him. So again, they're just such layered characters. It's just wonderful.
RK agreeing with you here. Confident male heroes are no longer allowed in Disney movies. They're always incompetent and portrayed as less than their female counterparts. Well, good news. I don't watch Disney movies anymore, so I don't have to put up with that bullshit.
Yeah, neither do I. Disney is dead to me.
And they might be selling off a lot of their IPs in the near future. So
so hopefully I hope they dispense. I hope they sell Fox. They bought Fox. I want them to sell Fox to someone else.
Yeah,
like we don't want this anymore. Give it back, because
they haven't done anything with Fox. So
I know they just sort of bought it.
Good. That's good though. They haven't tarnished that logo yet, so give it back without any shit on it and give it to someone else.
Yeah, because they're sitting on good films and good stuff.
I think that they really. I think realistically, the main there's two main reasons they bought Fox. One was to get the X-Men. We know that one. And then two was just for a larger back catalog for their streaming services. Unfortunately, Do
you think this still is taken between takes? It looks like the guy at the back right is like doing a Scarecrow impression in this picture. What's going on?
Well, he's just cracked a joke and they're all laughing at it.
Yeah, because this guy's like smiling inanely, and I'm thinking I don't remember them. I think this is like a
because he just said I do not consider myself subject to much at all, and
that's a great line.
Yeah, and it does have wonderful writing. And of course, it's also a movie that really rose above its literature, apparently the novel on which this was based was very dated, very racist, and very much had that very old world perspective of the white man's view of the Native Americans, and it was very dated. And this movie kind of took the seed of the idea, but did something better with it. So really rose above its source material.
That was written by James Fenimore Cooper, if I remember rightly, I think. And that they did there was an earlier version of this movie that was made in black and white, and
very, very old. And I've seen bits of it, and it really,
it's not a good film. This scene is really interesting because it's so typically English. Like, back then, if you wanted to woo a woman, you had to have like a formal date or go for a stroll accompanied by a third party or whatever. And it's like, so yes, we have to sit down and have tea and scones in the middle of the wilderness to have a polite discussion about whether we're going to get married or not. Beautifully played.
How did you guys ever conquer the world? I don't understand.
I don't know. It's a mystery to me too. But my dad was a descendant from Vikings, so they did all right. I think one other thing I want to say about the film is it's probably got, again, with Michael Mann, Heat has got one of the best action scenes ever put to cinema. This film has got three that are all superb. You've got the ambush that happens right near the beginning, very much replicated in Mel Gibson's The Patriot later. It even looks like it was filmed in the same location. And then you've got the whole stuff around the siege with the siege of the fort, some great action sequences there. And then you've got the final action sequence on the cliff, and then the ambush in the glade, and that massive long slow motion shot of Daniel Day-Lewis running through to save the girl. And there's all this stuff going on in the background. And when I rewatch the movie, I always look at different extras to see what they're doing, in the background. And it's all so well done. Everybody's so invested in every shot. I just think the film is a work of art, really, and the performances, again, outstanding stuff.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It really should be heralded much greater than it is. And I mean, just like, look at that. I mean, it is like some frames are just like you could print that out and put it on your wall. That is a painting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you look at the making of, the amount of money they poured into making that Fort William Henry, they actually built it.
That was $6 million of the budget, and that was filmed. That was constructed. I was trying to find it for this stream. I was trying to find the actual location where it was built because I wanted to see if there was any trace of it still there. But the lake that it was built on, I forget the name of it. You can find it out on Google. It's pretty big. It's not like a small round lake. It's a lake with dozens of inlets that's dozens of miles wide. And I was searching forever on Google Earth trying to find the little island that little island with the trees on it at the back, and so I could pull it up like I like to do, but I couldn't find it.
I mean, it's probably pulled down by now, but the amount of money they spent on building that fort and how
$6 million,
how big it was. It was so big, and it's just I don't know. There's something about the scale of the movie as well. It's just
it feels
takes my breath away.
You feel like you've been round half of what was America at that time. By the end of the film. And we should give a shout out to the late Russell Means, who was in the movie, who sadly has passed away now. Somebody mentioned him in the chat earlier. He was absolutely fantastic in this.
Yes, he was, and not actually an actor. He was I think he was an activist
Indian activist. That's right. And
who got quite famous with something, and and then he just did so well.
I think he was in Dances. Was he in Dances with Wolves as well?
No, he wasn't in Dances with Wolves. No, there's not a lot of Dances with Wolves people in. There's not a lot of, except for Wes Studi. I think they're the only crossover that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay. What would you give it out of 10 on IMDb?
I'm giving it a flat 10. I'd give it 11 if I could go to 11.
I did that on a stream yesterday. Dark Hour, you saw it a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. I remember it being a good movie. I just haven't. It wasn't something I went back and rewatched. So I don't want to give it a number because
revisit it with your new critic's hat on and come back and tell us.
I can do that. I can do that. Actually, maybe I'll do a Michael Mann. It's funny because had I known I was going to be on this, I probably would have rewatched some of the movies. But I'm just going based on memory now.
That's all good, dude. No worries. Well, if you do one on your stream, I'll come on. Leroy Peters gives it 10 out of 10. I absolutely would give it 10 out of 10. I agree. It's right up there in my top 30 movies of all time. It's definitely in that.
Yeah, it's in my top. It's in my top 10. Easily.
As is Heat. I mean, I'd have to think about whether it's in my top 10 because there's a lot of films fighting for those 10 places. But it's definitely in the top 30, maybe even in the top 15. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's go back to one of Dark Hour's picks because I think you picked one that neither Matt nor I.
It's probably Ali. I think that was the one that I picked. That.
Well, you mentioned Manhunter as well, right?
Oh, Manhunter. Yes. Did you want to go with that one instead?
Let's talk about Manhunter first. Now, guess what? I also saw that at the cinema.
I wasn't born yet, but
no. Despite the beard and the gradually receding hair, Dark Hour is actually 20 years younger than me. So
I always tell people that I'm like I like to joke because like people will see me like, oh, how old are you? And I'm actually 35, but I'll be like when I'm at work and like the newer like 20 somethings are showing up, I'm like, don't I look good for 22?
Yeah, I think you look fantastic, man. So Manhunter was obviously based on the book Red Dragon. I've got a few interesting things to tell you about that film, which you guys may or may not be aware of. Now, Red Dragon was, of course, it was remade and called Red Dragon years later. Both of the films were shot by the same DOP.
Interesting.
So Manhunter and the subsequent remake Red Dragon both shot by Dante Spinotti. I'm not sure how.
Who shot Last of the Mohicans?
Yeah, he did, and incredibly good DOP. I think he's passed away now. I think.
Yeah, I think he has. Yeah,
I think he has. But a couple of interesting things about Manhunter the movie, which of course would star. I think it's William Peterson who went on to
William Peterson and Brian Cox.
Yeah. So the one thing that when I was watching the movie in the cinema, I went with my friend. We saw it at the Canon 5 screen on Oxford Street, and didn't get a big release in the UK, but it got a release. And again, I saw from the mind of Michael Mann, Miami Vice. I was like, okay, yeah, let's go and check this out. I like cop shows, and that there's a scene where somebody goes to meet. I don't want to give spoilers for people that haven't seen it, but someone goes to meet another character in the story, and the next scene is set at the bottom of a car park, and another character is waiting for one of these two people, and suddenly you see a burning light up the ramp of the car park, and you can hear something running towards the camera, and you don't realize what it is until it gets really close to you, and you realize it's a man on fire strapped into a wheelchair. And I remember quite vividly, despite my loss of memory, I do remember quite vividly jumping out of my seat and going, Jesus Christ! And that was really, really vivid. I have to say that I prefer Manhunter over the remake Red Dragon. I just think there are certain things about it that are superior for me. But
it had a grittier feel. It had a much grittier feel. The Red Dragon remake had a much more like polished look, and it looked more like. I mean, it was a more modern movie. It looked like a modern movie. It had like the violence of the original one, like that sequence you just mentioned, just came off like you had a more guttural feeling with it because of the way it was filmed, just the general look of it. I thought Brian Cox. I know like everybody will always say Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter, but Brian Cox does a fantastic job.
Yeah, he was really good in it.
He plays it whereas like Anthony Hopkins kind of plays it as like very flamboyant, and Brian Cox plays it as more subdued, more like real low key kind of feel to it, which is a completely different take, obviously. And they both work very well, and I don't think that it would have if either one tried to do the other one, I don't think it would have went over as well, to be honest with you. The William Peterson, I've liked him my whole life because I grew up watching CSI. So, to see him, and I think that was the reason I checked it out, actually. Or no, that wasn't. No, the reason I checked out the Manhunter was I had seen Silence of the Lambs, and somebody told me, "Did you know there's a prequel?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they told me about Manhunter, and I was like, "Wait, it's like a completely different actor and stuff." But then, like, at the time when I watched it, it was like almost the height of like CSI being a thing. So it was like seeing William Peterson in that was kind of a cool thing about that. And Tom Noonan does you have the picture up right now.
Yeah, I was about to mention him.
I think he does way better than Fiennes does in Red Dragon.
I agree. I don't know if you know this, but Tom Noonan was a complete unknown when he auditioned for the role. Peterson had done To Live and Die in LA, which got him a lot of exposure, which got him this role. But no one had seen really Tom Noonan do very much of anything. And he was, or the story behind how he got the role was he was auditioning for the part in front of the, director, casting director, producer. And he noticed that the actress, because he is a very tall, imposing guy, started getting scared. So once he tapped into that, he pushed her the absolute limit he could in the audition, and this actress completely shit herself. And Michael Mann looked at the casting director and went, "Yeah, this is the guy." And I don't know if you recognize the actor that's in that scene. Tom Noonan's on the left, but that is our man from Avatar who leads the military.
Stephen Lang.
It is Stephen Lang.
Yeah, that is him. Wow.
And Stephen Lang got that part because he gate crashed a party at which Michael Mann happened to be at, and was introduced to him. So that's the story behind that. Now, Tom Noonan wanted to be kept separate from the rest of the cast and didn't want to meet any of them until he met them in the scene. So he took separate flights from all the production crew. He stayed in different hotels. And the first time that William Peterson met him is the scene where he jumps through the window. So they kept them apart right up until that take. And I respect him for that attitude. And he said a lot of the crew found it quite intimidating, and the cast and crew avoided him, but he didn't mind because he said that's what helped him to get into the role. So, it's it's great that when you hear about that sort of stuff going on and the results were worth it. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Tom Noonan at 6'5". I didn't realize he was that.
Yeah,
tall.
he's quite an intimidating, height, man. I mean, he's a big guy.
And he just looks. He has such a great look for like a psycho. Like one of the things. So I always draw back to this because the first thing I did, we mentioned it earlier with Drinker Got Me My Start. We did The Last Action Hero, and he's in that, and he plays the psycho axe murderer in that too. And he just he just has a look that it works so well for that. And I think he was also in it's not a very well received movie, but RoboCop 2, when he plays like the drug addicted.
He's the main bad guy.
He's just Kane, right? Yeah,
Kane. Yeah. And I couldn't remember the name all of a sudden, but yeah, it's Kane, and he just has such a good look for
he does definitely
an opposing psycho villain. It's like, if there's a thing to be typecast as, that's got to be one of them, because you could always use that in a movie.
Yeah, you always need a good villain.
Yeah,
I definitely recommend Manhunter to anyone who hasn't seen it. It is a film of its time, but if you're a fan of Michael Mann's, not only has it got a really good cast, but you can really see the aesthetic of the film, the color tones and stuff like that would become a blueprint for some of his later work. Again, it's reflected in Heat and The Insider in particular. Anything else you want to say about Manhunter, Dark Hour?
No. I'll defer to you guys. I think I said everything I really wanted to say about it.
What would you give it out of 10 on IMDb?
It's not as close as the other 2 to 10, but I like a 7.5.
Yeah, I'd probably give it 7.5, maybe an 8.
Yeah, an 8. If I went back and rewatched it, I might like maybe if you caught me right after watching it, I might give it an 8. It definitely has like a really different take on the characters than the Red Dragon film, which I still enjoyed that one, but it wasn't. It was if they almost feel like despite the fact they follow the same, like almost part for part, exactly the same like plot line. They don't change much at all because it's also based on a book, but they feel like completely different movies.
Yeah. And they're shot in totally different eras. And
was it Brett Ratner did the Red Dragon, didn't he?
I believe so. I can look that up.
Yeah, you might have to check that, but
he's kind of disappeared, hasn't he?
Oh, he had some stuff come up.
Yeah. He's in director's jail.
Yeah, it was Brett Ratner.
Let's move on. Okay, so other ones that were in our personal top 3. Dark Hour also mentioned Ali. Matt had Collateral, and I have The Insider. So, Matt, let's talk about Collateral next, which is a favorite of a lot of people's, I think. Now, I saw this at Empire Screen 1, which was my favorite cinema. Matt, that's where I took you to see Mission Impossible. That's where I saw Collateral in that screen.
Nice.
One thing I saw Collateral and I saw Miami Vice in that screen. And I remember thinking there were lines of dialogue and Public Enemies. All 3 of them were Michael Mann's film. I saw all 3 of them in that screen. And in all 3 of those films, there were lines that I couldn't hear. Like they sounded like they were mumbled. Does that jar with your recollection of the film? That annoyed me when I was watching Collateral. There were like
I think so, yeah.
3 or 4 lines on Cruises that I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I think it's I think that's sort of there's I feel like a laziness crept into Michael Mann's directing once the digital age came in. I think because it was so much faster and cheaper to shoot that way, that sense of a bit of a laziness kind of came into his work rather than his work that was much more thoughtful and really cinematic and really thought out. So it's probably something to do with that. Because there's really no excuse when you're working in Hollywood at that budget level. There is no excuse for bad sound because it's you can always get an actor in to loop a line. So there's no excuse for it really, or maybe it's just a bad mix. But Collateral, I thought was a really good. I thought it was a great movie for one of those. You're always looking for them as a filmmaker. Those little ideas that can be like a little contained story that focuses on very few characters and takes place in a very short amount of time. And I feel like Collateral was like a really, really high end version of one of those kind of low budget films. A hitman, hijacks a taxi driver for the night to go around and do his hits. It's such a nice little clean, and whereas Heat is this massive story of cops and robbers and spanning months and and with years of build up with multiple characters, this is just 2 characters, one night. And I think those kind of movies are really great to digest. And I think a really committed performance by Tom Cruise, who's willing to play the bad dude. And I thought Jamie Foxx was perfectly fine, but I probably would have rather have seen another actor in that role.
Well, here's an interesting tidbit of information. Do you know who was due to play that role originally? I'll tell you who.
Denzel?
No, I'll tell you who. Adam Sandler.
Oh God. Okay, I like.
He takes it back, ladies and gentlemen.
I like Jamie Foxx much better.
You know what? Since I saw Adam Sandler in, was it Uncut Gems? that
Yeah.
that indie film that won him the award when he graciously collected the award, and the first thing he said to the other nominees was, "I have to apologize to my fellow nominees for now being known as the guys who lost to Adam Sandler. I'm so sorry," which is hilarious. And he was very self-effacing about it. He's actually really good in that film, and I think he probably would have done an okay job in this. Now I've seen him do something other than a naff comedy. So
I didn't like that film, Uncut Gems. I really disliked that film. Really,
I'm
one of the few people that just really detested it.
But I thought he could act in it. But
I seem to remember him being like good in the role, like even though he's normally comedy. Yeah, but he was still had that manic kind of way about him.
Yeah, but it was kind of what was required for the script, so I got why he got cast.
I think he worked for that part. Whereas I think you needed a repressed everyman for this one, which Jamie Foxx. I mean, he looks the part with his glasses and his little moustache and everything. I think but there's something about Jamie Foxx it's very like he's just oozes. He's like Will Smith. He oozes cool, and he's so good looking, and he oozes awesome, and it's hard to get past that. I probably would have rather seen a more, I don't know, a more dumpy, more everyman kind of looking actor that really you really believe is just a down and out taxi driver.
Do you know who was originally supposed to play the Tom Cruise role?
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
Russell Crowe.
Oh. Interesting. That I can see he would have done that very well. And probably in the wake of LA Confidential, or was this before LA Confidential? Can't remember.
No, I think it was afterwards.
LA Confidential was 97, so
Collateral was 2001, I think.
Right. So yeah, no, Russell Crowe would have been good as this. He was still in his relatively light days. He wasn't too heavy set. So yeah, he would have done good.
Yes, indeed.
But he kind of Russell Crowe did that film a few years ago where he was playing that guy stalking that woman. That what's it called? That road rage guy who
yeah, I've not seen it, but I've heard that film's quite good.
It's not bad. It's okay.
Worth my time, is it?
I wouldn't run to see it, but if you catch it one night, it's worth a watch.
Well, fortunately, I don't need to run to see any films these days. So what would you give Collateral out of 10, Matt?
I just give it a good solid 8. It's a good solid 8 out of 10 movie. You have a good time, but it's not gonna change your life, but you're gonna have a good time with it.
I'd give it an 8 as well. Dark Hour, have you seen it?
So I actually watched Collateral relatively recently. One of the guys in the chat, Wes, I think you highlighted one of his comments a little while ago, actually had suggested to me. So I have actually watched it relatively recently. I think I might have liked it a little bit more had I not has recently seen all of the John Wick films and kind of been a little desensitized to that kind of stuff. It was still a very solid film. I enjoyed it. I think, and
it's a bit more grounded than a John Wick film.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of I really like the John Wick movies, so it kind of fell a little lower than it probably would have had I seen it first. But a staple, just like almost every Michael Mann movie, a lot of great actors top to bottom on that cast. I think I had it pulled up before.
He always has really good. He always makes sure he gets great actors because he can command them.
Yeah, it's. So I saw somebody else in the chat say it was Jada Pinkett Smith when she was still hot. You had Jamie Foxx, Mark Ruffalo when he was still a better looking man too. Jason Statham was in the movie. So you had, it's not as deep of a cast as Heat or something like that has a really large cast.
No,
but
it's very
you still had good actors top to bottom, which always helps everything. So, and yeah, it is a way more realistic movie than John Wick. But I'm just saying that had I not recently seen all the John Wick movies in the last few years or so, I may have ranked this a little higher, but only because I'm that's now my John Wick 1 is now my standard for a Hitman movie. So it's But I'd be like probably about the same where I was with like Manhunter, like in the 7-ish range. 6, like, you know.
My favorite Hitman movie of all time is still Leon.
Oh yeah, Leon the Professional. That's coming up on like a 30th anniversary or something like that.
Wow, can you believe that?
I've got a version of it here that I've not yet watched. Still in its original wrapping, which Matt's influence forced me to buy when we were raiding various stores in Brighton to increase his ever-growing Blu-ray collection. And I was caught up in the energy of Matt's orbit and ended up purchasing 3 Blu-rays that I really didn't need. But this is one of the ones that I got, and it's an extended cut. I've not seen it, so I'm looking forward to watching that. Might actually stick that on tonight, so I'll put that to one side. Anything else to say about Collateral before we move on?
I think it was pretty much covered.
Good. Okay. I mean, it's an 8 out of 10 from me. Leroy gives it a 9 out of 10. We've got another 8 out of 10 here. Melvin, Jamie Foxx was god awful in Spider-Man. There's an interesting story about Jamie Foxx's demands after he won an award. You can read about those on Wikipedia. I'm not going to dwell on them now. Let's talk about Ali, because that was one of your choices, Dark Hour. I do like my biographical pictures. It's one of the 2. Well, I suppose you could say that Michael Mann's done 3 biographical pictures in a way, because Heat is semi-autobiographical. So is Public Enemies, and then Ali. Has he done any others, or is it just those 3?
I think it's those are the 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only seen Ali once. Excuse me. Only seen Ali once. I think I saw it at the cinema once, and that's it.
I saw it at the cinema, and I own the DVD. I've only watched it twice. It's a good, solid film, but for me, it's missing something. But Dark Eye, it's on your list, so jump in.
So one of the reasons I like it so much, and I could see what you're saying, it might be missing a little something, but I'm a martial arts and boxing historian when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I always I may have a special place for it because I had a lot of conversations as a kid. My father passed away when I was 19. But when I was younger, we used to talk about boxing a lot. And he'd always tell me about the stories about the fights between, you know, the then Cassius Clay and Sonny Liston, and all 3 fights with Joe Frazier and, you know, and Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. So to like see them in movie form was just really cool to me.
Especially if you've got an interest in that side of things.
Yeah. So it does artificially prop it up a little bit for me. You know, and just like the shape that Will Smith got into for it was just like, when I see that kind of transformation from somebody, I mean, he was always in good shape, but he got into like boxing shape.
Yeah, and he bulked out. Like, he wasn't just like lean. He was like,
well, yeah, because he wouldn't have been, if he would have been like looking like he normally does, he wouldn't have been believable as a heavyweight boxer. You know, people they would have been like, he's like a middleweight, you know. So like he bulked up and he was in sick shape. And you know, like probably the you know, some they obviously they have to touch about like the religious aspects and all that stuff throughout the film with Malcolm X and all those things. You know, not my favorite part of the movie. Obviously, I'm more about the boxing side, but I thought it was a pretty faithful telling of what was going on around that time. It didn't really embellish too much, which is always a good thing for those kind of. I mean, it's hard to embellish somebody like Muhammad Ali to begin with. You know,
that is true.
But so you know, just all of that kind of rolled together for me. It just made this something that I really enjoyed watching. So
yeah, no, I can see that, especially if you have that interest at that this is probably be like a dream come true kind of movie for you.
Yeah,
exactly. Have an interest in that stuff.
And I remember thinking I was really into Will Smith too. So
right,
I really thought I was really into a lot of his like movies.
Kind of the height of his career.
It was a little bit toward the downslope of his career. It was like, but he it was kind of like a last little bump before he fell off.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel the big bump for him was a bit later, but let's not go back to the.
I remember enjoying it. I remember thinking it was very well made. I remember thinking Will Smith was great, but nothing made me want to watch it again. I saw it at the cinema. I thought that was good, but I'd never returned to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a solid film, but I don't know what was missing from it. But I mean, like another film that's got boxing as a main narrative and is also semi-based on a true. It's based on a book that was written by a guy that's semi-autobiographical. And Dark Hour, you may have seen this film, and if you haven't, you should rush out and get it. You'll love it. It's called The Power of One with Stephen Dorff.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great film. And funnily enough, I saw that in the same screen that I saw Last of the Mohicans in, and I think about 2 weeks before. They definitely both came out in.
Yeah,
the
they
UK.
came out at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I'd never heard of this film, and it got a fairly limited release in the UK. It's almost impossible to get on Blu-ray. Fantastic movie. You know, Morgan Freeman, young Daniel Craig is in it. I must have watched that film about 15 times. I also got the soundtrack. The soundtrack of that film is amazing.
It is excellent.
You know, I mean, Ali, biographical boxing story. I've watched it twice. Karate Kid, completely fictional story. I must have watched it 50 times. So, I don't know what it is that's missing about it for me. For me, it's a 7 out of 10, probably. Full props to Will for really going all out. He's brilliant in it. But yeah, for me, it's not. It's a great film, but it's not in the best of Mann's for me.
No, I probably should have another look at it because when did it come out? In the early
2001.
Yeah, like that's 20 years ago.
I need to. I mean, there are. You know, I couldn't revisit all of his films in time for this. I did revisit a couple, but I would agree. I probably need to watch it again, and because I'm more technically minded than I was when I watched it before, there's probably going to be a lot of things in it I'm going to appreciate that I didn't appreciate before. But I always like to pick choices that impacted me at the time, and those things have stayed with me because I think how a film impacts you at the time is always quite important. A couple of other people really liking The Power of One in here, so we're definitely going to do a stream about that, guys.
It's a really overlooked movie, that one. It's really overlooked, and it's got so many good things about Power of One.
My friend Nerdly UK, who's also a reviewer. Nerdly, we must get you on the channel sometime, mate, as a guest co-host. Let me know if you want to come on sometime. What a shout out, Lance. Amazing.
Nerdly UK. Interesting. That's
he's
not.
Got his own channel. He's got his own little blog about. He reviews films and stuff.
I think Nerdly reviewed The Cost.
Did he review The Cost? Oh, that's great.
Nerdly.com.
Yeah, so I think. Well, Nerdly, you can let us know if you've seen Matt's film, The Cost.
Have you seen my film, The Cost? Because someone from the UK, Nerdly.com, reviewed The Cost and gave it like 9 out of 10.
Oh, mate. Well, if that's you, let me know. In fact, just say so in the chat.
You have the option to do it right there.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Yeah. Well, look, good choice. I can see particularly, you know, that kind of hit me when you said the thing about your dad, because I really miss my dad greatly, man. And in fact, I've got a picture of him right here, just on the shelf here, and it's right next to my Blu-ray for Cocoon, which I took my dad to see. Here he is with me here, much younger me. And his big passion was sailing, you know. So whenever there was a movie that had anything to do with sailboats in it, I would either rent it from the shop or take him to see it so that we could connect. And actually, the thing that we did connect with was that my dad did quite like going to the cinema. And he died just before Avatar came out, or just after it came out. And I was telling him all about it. And he was in an old people's home. And I was trying to arrange transport to get him up to the IMAX to see it. And it just didn't happen. And he passed away before I was able to sort that out. But it's interesting how those memories stay with you. I mean, I bet you must have on video. You must have watched a Rocky movie with your dad, right?
I actually have two reviews on my channel about Rocky movies. I'm eventually going to go back and do all of them. I have Rocky 1 and 2 done on my channel. So if anybody's interested out in the audience of in the chat of watching those, I was actually doing a cool thing. So I started with fight scene analysis, and then I transitioned to full film analysis as I got like a little bit better at understanding how to do it. And so I have an intention to go back and finish all the Rocky films ranked, and then I rank the fights as well. So as of right now, I only have the first 2 done. But I'm going back into those kind of like older film video essays now, so I'll probably do those in the near future.
Right.
Cool.
That's interesting.
Our parents are important to what they introduce us to, and I think there's something about like my love of movies started because my dad introduced me to Ben-Hur, and ever since then I've been crazy about movies. So, and it's amazing now how I talk to people here in Australia, filmmakers in Australia that do screenwriting courses and things like that. They actually hold them, and they tell me that these 20-year-olds that are taking these courses and want to be filmmakers are so film illiterate. They have not seen the great classics and the wonderful movies that have brought us to this point. They do not have an understanding of the cinema that came before. Like they know movies from 5 years ago and onwards. That's it.
Yeah, dude. Most of them haven't even fucking seen Die Hard.
I know it's crazy.
Like at the Outcast,
the Die Hard, by far the greatest Christmas movie there is.
Yeah.
And the greatest Christmas movie and the greatest action movie.
We had so many young actors, and I there was one point we were doing a scene or something, and I said, so guys, with this scene, I mean like Alan Rickman in Die Hard, and they're all like looking at me like, what are you talking about? Die Hard, Alan Rickman.
Look, in my house, it's not Christmas until Hans Gruber hits the ground from 60 stories up. Okay.
It's of course, as we all know, Die Hard is Hans Gruber's story, but we'll cover that on a different.
It's the Gruber family story, actually.
It's the Gruber family story. Yeah. That's right. I mean, okay, great. Well, look, I'm going to mention my pick that neither of you mentioned, and there's lots of reasons why I really love this film, and that's The Insider with Russell Crowe, Al Pacino, true story.
Another one of his true stories.
Based on the story of Michael Wigan, who was the whistleblower against Big Tobacco, who were deliberately making nicotine more addictive so they would sell more cigarettes. Interesting that Val Kilmer was originally considered for the Russell Crowe role.
I can see that.
Yeah, and now one of the reasons why I really love the film is I think the script, who's co-written by Michael Mann, but also Eric Roth. I think the script is fantastic. The dialogue scenes in this film are just beautiful. I used to have 4 of them on my Walkman. I had a Walkman compilation I had a D90 Walkman tape cassette, and it had a compilation of different scenes from movies on it instead of songs I used to take with me because that's how nerdly I was. And like had the space battle from Return of the Jedi, and I'm already on my way out and all this kind of thing. And people would be thinking I'd be nodding my head to music, but it was actually TIE fighters blowing up things. But I also had 3 scenes from The Insider on it because the dialogue was just so good. That whole scene with Pacino going, when has CBS bowed to the paragrams of Big Tobacco? And no, you're not an objective producer. You work for free. All of that stuff is just so good. And you've got Plummer there, and the cast. All the actors are great. Even Gina Gershon playing the lawyer, which is not a role you would cast her in a million years. The lawyer for CBS. She's brilliant. She's just perfect in it. Really good. And I just love all the back and forth in it. It's a beautifully shot film. It's one of the few times that I felt that I just saw the streets of New York from the point of view of just people that have ordinary lives and occasionally watch a bit of television, and they might see a bit of 60 Minutes and the impact that a television show like that might have. Russell Crowe was unsure about doing the role because he was 33 at the time, and Wygant was 45 when these events took place. So he put on weight and kind of, went full up. Yeah, full Marlon Brando for the part. But if people haven't seen it, and I mean, it's not going to be for everyone. It was, Michael Mann's had a few financial flops. Now, Ali was a massive flop for Mann. People did not go and see Ali, and it was Will Smith was paid $20 million for that film, By the way, Dark Hour, there are 3 different cuts of that movie that exist.
Oh,
wow.
So if you track all the different DVD and Blu-ray releases down, you can get them all. But it had a budget of 105 million.
Wow, and if that's hard for that to flop. Oof.
Yeah.
Put you in director's jail.
Now, The Insider had a budget of 90 million. I imagine a fair chunk of that went on Al Pacino's condo. But Eric Roth, who co-wrote the script, and I was saying the dialogue's so beautiful, he also wrote the script for the new version of June.
He's done a lot, Eric Roth.
Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
I'll forgive him for that.
And then one of the other things was that he was a victim. He was one of the many victims of Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme and lost nearly all of his life savings.
Oh, my God.
That's quite an interesting little side story. So if you haven't seen The Insider, which Dark Hour, I don't think you have.
That was not on a list I've seen. It sounds very interesting, though. I'll have to give it a
I would watch it. It's Disney were hoping it was going to be like the next All President's Men, and they said that only people over the age of 40 went to see it. Well, that's a lie. I saw it in my 30s, Disney, so it's a bit stuffed. But it was.
You don't know shit.
I think it's a good film. I mean, it only made 63 million worldwide against its 90 million budget, so it didn't do that great. But of all of Mann's films, it's had more nominations and the best reviews across the board.
Yeah, it had a total of 7 Academy Award nominations, 1 BAFTA, and 5 Golden Globes. So altogether, the rest of them don't even equal that.
I think it's a very good film. Like that, you can't, in one sense, you can't fault it. It's excellently written. It's beautifully performed. It's a good subject matter. It feels like an awards movie, and
agree.
But for me, it's just not a viewing experience that I keep wanting to return to. I've seen it 2-3 times now, and I remember on my 3rd viewing, I remember going, "Oh, I'm kind of this is getting a bit long in the tooth. I'm a bit." There wasn't
enough musket fire and people getting
punched in the face and
AR-15s firing down at police. I mean,
it just was. I mean, it's good, but I just didn't feel it was like, I don't know, because it's about it's a debate about corruption, and I think because it doesn't have the life and death stakes of the other Michael Mann films. But it's really well done, so you can acknowledge the excellence of what you're seeing, but it's just not as immediately engaging as his other stuff.
Okay. Well,
but it's not the film's fault. It's probably the subject's fault, not the film's fault.
The subject matter is quite niche. But what I would say to people in chat or anybody else that watches this subsequently is, if you're interested in studying the craft of acting, or you just want to see really good actors do their shit properly, this is a film for that. It's not that the story's not engaging. It's probably not a film you're going to watch every year. In fact, I own it. I've probably only watched it 3 times, but I still love it as a movie. And you know me, I'm an actor's director, so I really like watching the performance.
I think it's definitely worth a watch. Like, it's definitely worth and seeing it for the first time will always be more interesting than watching it your second and thirds, because it's all new and fresh. So I definitely would highly recommend you, if you're a serious cinephile, definitely watch it.
Now, before we wrap up, because I know my co-hosts have got to go soon, and I did say I wanted to try and keep this to 90 minutes. Have we got 5 minutes left, guys?
I can push it 5 more minutes.
Yeah. You do 5. So I think we've mentioned all the films that we selected between us.
We have, yep.
I think probably overall from the comments in chat, Heat would still be everybody's
Heat seems to be the one, and deservedly so.
And I think probably
he'll never better that film, I don't think.
Last of the Mohicans probably fighting for pretty well for second place, but I think any number of his other films could be 3rd place.
It really just depends on what your flavor is, what your style, what you love. I thought I would like Public Enemies a lot more. I went to the cinema to see Public Enemies. I was excited beyond to see a modern Dillinger movie, and in the hands of Michael Mann, I thought this was going to be a classic for the ages. Like the ultimate 1940s gangster film. And then when I saw it, I was, well, that was good, but I don't think it was what it could have been.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be as good as The Untouchables, and it wasn't for me. It tried to include too much. I think if the story had had a narrower focus, it would have been a bit better. There were too many,
did suffer.
too many perspectives.
It did suffer from the bloat of trying to cram it all in, but it had some wonderful performances, had some great actors. It had some that shootout at the bungalow was just with all the Tommy guns was amazing. I really did think that visually it suffered from the digital photography. I think that was the worst decision he made, and a lot of the handheld sort of documentary style, it just didn't work. So I'm a bit miffed that he let the side down with that, but otherwise it's still a worthy entry into the gangster film genre. And if it was from another director, we'd probably be less forgiving. But because this is the last of the Mohicans and Heat guy, it's like, oh man, we know you can do better than this. We know it. We've seen it. Do better.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And again, I also had seen a film about Dillinger where Matt Harmon played the lead role. It was a straight-to-video release.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah,
that's actually a really good movie.
I remember.
It's a solid film. It is a good film. So
I'd like to hunt that down again. Actually,
yeah, I would as well. And I didn't think that this, it didn't blow me away to a greater level than that did. So for me, it's a 7 out of 10.
It's a 6-7 for me. 6-7.
Yeah. I'm just going to mention very quickly before we go. Let's mention a couple of other films of his that we've not discussed. Now, as I said, anyone who hasn't seen Thief, not his first feature film, which was Jericho Mile, which was a made-for-TV movie that was shot in a prison, which is where he first heard the story about Macaulay, which became the inspiration for Heat. But Thief with Jimmy Caan, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I watched it for the first time today. Jerry Bruckheimer was actually a producer on the movie. Wow, and you'll see a dozen Easter eggs in that film that relate to Heat, including the police being called the Heat by Jimmy Caan in the film. Right. Now the Keep is an interesting one. The Keep didn't get a cinema release in most countries. The original cut was 210 minutes long. I'd love to see that. Wow. It was then cut to 120 minutes at the request of the studio, finally released in 96 minutes. Very weird, disjointed film about a group of German SS soldiers taking up in a bunker in Eastern Europe during the invasion of Barbarossa, and mysterious shit takes place. Have either of you guys seen it? Anything to comment on that one?
No, I've never seen it, but I know my co-writer on the cast really likes it. He has a fascination for that film, so I'm looking forward to catching up with it eventually. I'm trying to work my way through Mann's early catalog. So starting with Thief.
He's got Ferrari coming out with and he raised the money for that independently.
Wow.
Didn't go through the studio system, and he shot it with the guy who plays the guy
Adam Driver.
Thank you. Yeah. I was going to say the not Darth Vader guy in the new Star Wars.
Yeah, and I just happened to have, so I looked up all the all of the cast lists before just to memory on stuff.
I think it looks good. I'll be very interested to see it when it comes out. For sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I mean, it's a true story, and he's usually very good at true stories. So I'll always give Michael Mann another go. I think he does have a big black stain on his career. A film called Blackhat that no one saw, and anyone who did see hated it.
Well, funny enough, I was about to mention that next before we go, because Blackhat came out in 2015.
Chris Hemsworth.
I've seen it. I wasn't enamored with it. Chris Hemsworth. Now, Michael Mann put out a statement about that movie, which I'm going to put into the chat. And he took responsibility for the failure. And he said, it's my responsibility. The script was not ready to shoot. The subject may have been ahead of the curve. And then there's a second bit, which David Macy's comment has slightly interrupted, because there were a number of people who thought this was all fantasy, but everything in the film is stone cold accurate. I mean, yeah, it didn't feel like a Michael Mann film to me, it felt like a sort of more of a studio churned it out film.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, anything to add to that?
I never saw it, so
I haven't seen it.
I saw the trailer and I was like, what's that? And I'm not a big Hemsworth fan, so, and of course, reading the reviews, I just went, yeah, I'll never bother with that. So, I think he lost his magic somewhere along the line. I hope Ferrari brings it back. So yeah. I'll give him another chance, but I do believe he's lost. He got, lazy or something. But
I just want to say hello to a few people in the chat who've popped up. Mr. Brown Alliance has popped in. Good to see you, mate. I had a lovely chat with him the other day. David Macy's mentioned the Agincourt film that at one point he was going to make, and it would have been up there with Gladiator and Braveheart. Maybe there definitely is an Agincourt film to be made that's more about the battle per se. Of course, we did have the King with Timothy Chalamet. Gary Bolter, who lives just down the road from Matt in Australia, and by that we mean about 2,500 miles away, is very partial to the Keep. So you know, and James Walsh thanking us for the stream. Well, we could have gone on longer, but I did say I'd try and keep this one a bit shorter. But that's a pretty good discussion about Michael Mann. Some good recommendations for people that haven't seen. Yeah. Overall, though, I would definitely say he's one of the best directors of his generation. He's had more successes than failures, and I always look forward to seeing what he does next. And he's still going at I think he's 80 now.
That's right. Yeah,
I will say this, but go on. I'm sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say the one thing I noticed when going back through his catalog and looking at the actors and stuff he's kind of the prototype for what like Nolan would end up going to, using a lot of the same people, kind of bouncing between different genres a little bit, but still always having that core that he kept to it. He's kind of like the prototype of what Nolan ended up doing.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Mann has absolutely been a director that has left his mark that others are following. Like you could, like Heat. I mean, it's so often copied. And so he's left a mark, and he's everyone should at least see. If you're a serious cinephile, you should definitely see at least half of his films because they're all very worthy.
Gary Bolter's mentioned Tokyo Vice. Michael Mann did direct, I think, 1 or 2 episodes of that. By the way, Michael Mann's daughter is also a director, so we may be seeing more from her in the future. So, Dark Hour, what you got coming up on your channel?
Well, we have The Drinker on this upcoming Saturday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Dude, you've got to let me pop in for 5 minutes to say hello.
Well, I'll see. I mean, I told him I'd keep it as trim as possible. He only guaranteed me 2 hours, so.
Yeah.
But
what movie are you discussing?
We are discussing Total Recall.
Oh, man. Do you know what? I saw that at what would have been the biggest cinema in Europe at the time. It was the Odeon Marble Arch. It's now been demolished in 70mm. The same cinema I took 20 people to see RoboCop in. Oh. And God, what a film. I've got the Blu-ray next door. I love the original version, of course.
And as for myself, I will be releasing the first part of a multi-part series on Why Ray Sucks, probably Thursday.
That sounds great. Yes.
It may or may not have a cameo from somebody in the chat. So.
Oh, well, I'm quite happy to pop in myself.
Ray Sucks. Big.
What?
Ray Sucks.
It's going to be called. It's called Why Ray Sucks Part 1. That's what it's going to probably be called. So,
awesome.
The first of a 24-part.
I think I'm going to go 5 parts. It's 4 or 5. I haven't decided.
There's a lot to unpack there.
There is a lot to unpack. Yeah.
One of the worst heroines of cinema history. One of the worst leads. Though I don't want to throw Daisy Ridley too much under the bus.
It wasn't her fault. It was.
No, I don't think we can. I think she's actually a decent actress who gave the best performance she could with the material she had.
I agree. I don't think Ridley she shouldn't go out.
I
totally agree. The character, the writing, the whole trajectory. I'm looking forward to it.
I would like to reiterate, it is about the character and the writing of the stories, not her as a person. So
exactly.
I do need to go now though, so I'm going to pop out.
Off you, run. I need to run
thanks
as well.
so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome anytime, and I'll see you again real soon.
Yes, you will.
All right.
Catch you all later.
Buddy.
Bye, chat.
Bye-bye.
So, Matt, the trailer for The Cost is out. I've even had a couple of people comment on where and when can I see it?
Yeah, well, I don't know when it's going to be out in the UK. You'll need to get in touch with High Flyers, the UK distributor for that. But look, from what last I heard, it's probably going to be around December.
Okay, all right.
So look for around December. I might contact High Flyers myself and see if when they're planning to release it. So.
Well, when it's coming up from the release, we did say, didn't we, that we would do a special industry interview with you and your cast. So
yeah, I'll get a few of the cast on. So maybe in October we'll do a cast thing on that, and we might even do a DVD or Blu-ray giveaway. That'd be good. That'd be fantastic. Whoever wants a copy of The Cost, it'll be a region B Blu-ray, region 4 DVD. It'll be Australian, but in the UK you can at least watch the same Blu-rays. Well, at the end of the day, if you have a multi-regional player, which anybody sensible should buy these days, you should be able to watch discs from anywhere in the world. Well, I've got a number of exciting things coming up on the channel, which I'll mention to people before I go. Tomorrow, I'm interviewing Nuno Sedanas, who is a Swiss national, and his hobby, not his hobby actually, I would say it's more his career, is that he designs film posters and visual art for productions. He particularly likes revisualizing posters for his favorite movies. So if you check out, it's already up on the live stream. We're tomorrow at 9 o'clock. It might be 8. I'd need to check, but it's this guy is really, really skilled, and some of the posters that he's done for his reimaginings, and let me show you some of them right now, I think are better than the originals that the studio released. So quite possible. Here you go. So you've got, these are all posters. Wow. There's one for Aliens there, 300, Mad Max, Tom Cruise Mission Impossible, Captain America Civil War. I don't really care about that. Ballerina, which I haven't actually seen, but I assume is about hit woman ballerina. A lovely poster for 1917. I particularly like that John Wick Chapter 4 poster. Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal work. Well done. Well done to him. So it's a shame I wasn't in touch with him when you were looking for that poster designer. I know, but something gives me the feeling I probably wouldn't have been able to afford this guy. Well, he's coming on the channel tomorrow, so I'm going to be. Is it 8 p.m.? Thank you, David. It's 8 p.m. tomorrow UK time. That'll be 3 p.m. East Coast. And of course, don't forget, everyone, it'll be staying up on the channel. Going towards the weekend, I've got my next Lone Wolf niche gaming stream. But most interesting of all, coming up in a couple of weeks, I've got a fantastic industry interview. I can't quite believe that this is happening, but it is happening. And I'm going to be talking to actor Tim Thomason. He's going to be coming on. I just did a 90-minute chat with him on video yesterday. He's going to be coming on the channel talking to me about his career, his time working with Empire Pictures, Charles Band's company that did the films like Robojocks, Ghoulies, a lot of those straight-to-video sci-fi films that you saw at the video shop in the 80s and 90s, Trancers, Jack Death 1 through 5. He did 5 of those. And then he was also in films like Uncommon Valor with Gene Hackman, of course, and a whole load of other stuff. I mean, the guy is one of the best character actors of his generation, and in my opinion, a massively underrated actor. And he's actually the first actor whose career I followed. And when I told him that, when I was talking to him, he said, "Sorry about that, Lance." So very self-effacing guy, but that's him with Gene Hackman on Uncommon Valor, of course, with Fred Ward, who sadly we lost recently. So he's coming on in a couple of weeks. I've just sent him a load of dates, and I will let you know when, guys. That's going to be one to watch out for. And I'm already talking to 2 other big players in the film industry, hoping to have news about them soon. So all things
creative in the industry at the Outcast channel. Come and see it here. Subscribe. Tell your friends now. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by Christmas Day of 2023. It is possible, but I'm going to need a bit of help. So you people watching out there, do give us a hand and share the streams. I think that's about it from us. So
indeed.
Thanks very much.
I will sign out and get on with the busy day ahead.
Indeed. So to all those people watching, thanks very much for tuning in. And don't forget to tell the people that you care about that you love them. And I'll see you all again real soon. And